Hi, and welcome to HR in the Fast Lane. I'm Nicole Martin, and this is my guest today, Dr. Jay Colker. How you doing, Jay?
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you for coming on today. It's my absolute pleasure to have him as a guest. If you haven't met Dr. Jay Colker, he's the co-founder of Crowdsourced Coaching, and he's also the director for research and scholarship at Adler University here in downtown Chicago, correct?
Yes.
Yes?
The Center for Adlerian Practice and Scholarship.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. So clearly somebody that has a good background in terms of organizational leadership, something that I'm personally passionate about. And when I had the opportunity to meet Jay and we had a personal conversation, I realized the stuff that he's dealing in, crowdsourced coaching, not only is this something that's still kind of cutting edge and forefront in terms of discussions within application in terms of businesses and what they're doing and implementing organizational leadership in their businesses, but he's traveling the globe, and actually this subject matter is across borders, something that's very relevant. So why don't we just start off with defining what crowdsourced coaching is?
I am more than happy to do so.
That'd be great.
So basically what I believe is that leaders have a wealth of knowledge and experience, and most leaders probably know what's right to do, and they're not consistently doing it for one reason or another. And where there are gaps in one leader's abilities, another leader has the answers. And so I don't believe I need to teach leaders anything. What I want to do is facilitate leader-to-leader coaching and leader-to-leader engagement and help them get real and have real talk real fast. And in the process, raise the bar on the collective knowledge of the group. And as trust builds, they can then mutually support each other.
Which is beautiful. I mean, it really is when you think about it conceptually. When we talk about what happens in businesses, and I remember taking classes in grad school in org theory, and you know, even the terminology is kind of not fun, right? It's like you have a mechanistic structure, or you can have an organic structure. And what you're getting into, really, we're talking about vertical and horizontal, which is much more relevant. People, I mean, even my 5-year-old knows the difference between vertical and horizontal. And so when you're talking about organizational leadership, first, everyone's a leader, right? So getting that premise, and then coming to the place of vertical and horizontal management practices. Let's dive into that a little bit.
It's a favorite topic of mine.
Great.
It really is. So let me talk about vertical first.
Okay.
And there are many ways to think about it. First, even in traditional business, the traditional view is you have to create the strategy, and then you drive that through the organization, and there's a logic to that, obviously.
Correct.
Because you have a mission, you have a goal to set forth, but often leaders take that to mean they're responsible.
Absolutely.
They're the one that's solely accountable, and it's their role to drive it. And what ends up happening is the more that they take on that burden themselves, the less the employees under them feel accountable. And the less engaged they feel.
They don't even feel part of it necessarily.
No,
they feel told.
That's exactly right. And what's difficult in that, the best strategy doesn't come top down. The strategy comes through a collaborative evolution or co-evolution. And
I love that. That's beautiful, by the way, to my ears.
Well, thank you. And then on a personal level, you have some people that are wired to almost have something to prove. And so they're driven to take that controlling role, which is another level of vertical striving. And rather than seeing themselves as collaborators, of connectors, of facilitating person-to-person and peer-to-peer engagement, they end up being the one that's pressured to direct and drive that.
Well, and you can see it in practice even sometimes where, as people are promoted within businesses, they actually feel in order to prove that they were worthy of the promotion or prove that they can handle this, they were capable of this, that you can trust me, they almost stop sharing.
That's right. Or they dictate or they delegate in a way that suddenly somebody feels that the relationship is off center.
Right.
Now, then horizontal relationships are, it's not about me.
Right.
It's about us, it's about collaborating, it's about co-creating. In fact, the most innovative companies are the ones where leaders have learned to really tap into the collective knowledge and experience of the employees.
Diversity of thought.
Diversity of thought and co-create solutions. And so that's where the crowdsourced approach comes into business engagement. And what I've done in my work is not just, a lot of crowdsourcing is quick hit, people coming in and out, hundreds and hundreds of people collaborating and contributing. But what I've done is driven it down to horizontal practices, which traditional HR seems to go against. Something as simple of
traditional would, yes.
Developmental planning, where it's between me and my boss, and I don't share what I'm working on with too many people unless I'm in a leadership cohort and there's some context. But why shouldn't I share what I'm developing with all of my colleagues? Because somebody else may have some skills that I don't have.
So when you think of just, if there are leaders out there that are having a personal challenge trying to go from a shift of vertical management practices of what they maybe always were managed by others vertically as they grew through their career, and now they actually are onboarding talent that expects to be managed horizontally, right?
That's exactly right.
Right, so here's this individual. How can they start to bridge mentally to understand that this horizontal practice is the way for them to go, and how can they maybe start to step into that light?
But I think that it means being fully present.
I love
you know, in the moment, because leaders that are present in the moment, that are understanding others and getting in their shoes and really meeting the needs, they're looking outward. You know, there's a wonderful story about a centipede that's walking along, all 100 legs beautifully flowing, and he came across a beetle, and he stopped and all legs went to attention, and the beetle said, "Maya, I so admire the way you move, but I have a question. Does your 57-foot move before or after your 56-foot? And the centipede starved to death. He became so busy watching his own feet he could no longer move. And I think leaders that are looking at themselves, looking inward, thinking about what their role is, what their responsibility is, they're not connecting in the right way with their colleagues or their direct reports.
Well, it's the premise of 360, right? Just getting out there, becoming self-aware about what it is and how effective you are in it.
That's exactly right. And then leaders also have to accept that the best solutions are not going to come through their driving it. The best solutions are going to be co-created within the team.
Absolutely, and I believe that. And I think that's something that absolutely should be orchestrated in most businesses today in order to even just attract and retain talent, and also to do something strategic for their business in terms of transferring knowledge, not just strategically, but expeditiously.
That's exactly right. And from a point of engagement, linking back to the value and the outcomes so that all employees that have co-created actually get the meaning in the longer term outcomes and how satisfied the clients or others are.
When you think about some of the real practical ways that you're integrating your work into businesses, not just teaching it to the up and coming people that will get out there and support these types of teachings, if you will, in their practices, but when you're working with your clients across the globe, what are some of the ways that you're actually making this just really tangible for them?
Well, it's, I mean, I have an example.
That'd be great, share it.
But it's actually an interesting example in that I had somebody that emailed me who was an active sergeant in charge of a maintenance department in Afghanistan during the war.
Oh, that's fascinating.
This is a few years ago, and she said that she's having a hard time motivating her group to finish their goals, the repaired vehicles. And they had tried everything. Her subordinate supervisors were in the Army were being threatening and cajoling and all of these things that you would think in the Army you just give an order and everybody follows it, right?
That's what they say.
Well, that wasn't the case, and they were very disengaged, and she sent me a simple email, what could she do? And I said, why don't you just engage the group and have a transparent discussion, say you're not meeting your goal, have them do brainstorming, leave the room, and let them brainstorm, and she could come back in, see the needs and walk through them. She could implement the low-hanging fruit, other things she could put teams together. I mean, it's not rocket science, these are logical concepts if you're working in business.
It sounds easy, right?
It does.
It does sound easy, Jay, but it's one of these things where people, just in that example you just gave, there's first of all vulnerability in it, and people have to feel comfortable being vulnerable. And then there's also listening.
Absolutely.
And not hearing the personal aspect of it, but really the growth opportunity in it.
So what happened? So she emailed me back, she was going to try that, and she said she would take her ego out of the mix.
Beautiful.
And she would ask her supervisors to do the same. It wasn't about her, but she thought maybe her supervisors didn't know that it wasn't about them.
And that's why she's a leader.
Right. And so a month later, she sends me an email. 30 days later, she sends me an email with the subject title, Shocking Turnaround. And she shared that she had talked to the group, she did that brainstorming, she learned some things of what they liked and didn't like, and she made some changes. She quietly removed 4 people that were causing problems, being a good leader, and she got out and walked around, talked to people, and she said, what were the results? At the beginning of their mission, till the time that she wrote me, they had lost 18 people. And they had increased 40% of demand on their need for repairs, right? But in the month prior, she said the most that they had done were 25 repairs in the entire month. A month later, they had done 168.
Oh my goodness.
And she said the highest they had ever done was 153, and that was with 18 more people. She said she practically did cartwheels.
Yeah.
And she had learned that people didn't like to work in the afternoons, but the employees were staying until 5:30 because they felt a common sense of purpose with the mission, and she had the subordinate leaders share where people were with the goal, how they were making a difference, how the whole brigade was depending on them. But what's really interesting is when she sent me that, she said she shared it with her immediate boss, and he was disturbed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Despite all that qualitative and quantitative.
Because she wasn't leading in the Army way.
Right. Those are real challenges. Those are real challenges. But I think the example is a really great example to share because it just goes to show how everybody can be a leader from their seat.
Absolutely.
And that's powerful and empowering.
And on her own, she didn't really understand how to make it a shared responsibility. Yeah. She felt burdened with the responsibility as soon as she shifted. And I didn't have to do a lot. I just gave her a few suggestions in an email, and it totally changed her frame.
I think that's a wonderful example. Well, I definitely hope that from that example you can see how crowdsourced coaching can help any business, any dynamic, and hopefully everybody's still understanding that organizational leadership and leadership in general is not something that's just an ad hoc leadership development initiative. It's truly about how every single person in a business is a leader, and together as leaders coming together, we can do amazing things.
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Dr. J.
Thanks for having me.
Why don't you point everybody to where they can find you?
Crowdsourcedcoaching.com, CROWDSOURCED coaching.com.
That's great. It's great. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.